The Menendez brothers are back in the headlines, and this time, it's not because of a documentary or a Hollywood adaptation of their notorious case. No, this week has been about raw courtroom drama, explosive claims, and a parole process that their lawyer says was obviously rigged from the start. Let's set the scene. It's August 2025. After more than 3 decades behind bars for the brutal shotgun murders of their parents, Jose and Kitty Menendez, Erik and Lyle Menendez finally had their chance to appear before the California Parole Board. This moment came after a resentencing earlier this year, when their original sentences of life without parole were reduced to 50 years to life, making them eligible for parole hearings for the very first time. For supporters, it was a long-awaited shot at redemption. For critics, it was a moment of reckoning. Erik Menendez was up first, facing the parole board on Thursday, August 21st. His brother Lyle followed on Friday, August 22nd. Both appearances drew intense media attention, and both ended in the same crushing result: parole denied. The board concluded that neither brother had shown enough accountability, growth, or remorse to justify release. But the story didn't end with those denials, it exploded. Their high-profile attorney, Mark Geragos, unleashed a blistering statement after the hearings, calling the process a kangaroo court and flat-out accusing the parole board of bias. According to Geragos, the hearings were outrageously rigged to guarantee failure. He argued that the board ignored decades of evidence showing the brothers had transformed behind bars, instead zeroing in on their past crimes as if the last 35 years of their lives didn't exist. Geragos didn't just vent, he announced a 3-pronged appeal plan. That includes legal challenges in court, a direct plea to California Governor Gavin Newsom for clemency, and new support from within the Menendez family itself. Yes, you heard that right, support from the family of the victims. Kitty Menendez's own sister reportedly backs the brothers' bid for a second chance, something Geragos believes could be a game-changer. Now, let's talk about the emotional fallout. Erik's wife, Tammi Menendez, didn't mince words. She called the entire hearing a complete setup, saying her husband never stood a chance. She pointed out that most of his alleged missteps in prison happened years ago and that he's been a model inmate since. Just 1 day later, Erik's stepdaughter, Talia, doubled down with a fiery Instagram post. She blasted the parole process as corrupt, saying it was designed to fail the brothers no matter what they said or did. In her words, it was a complete setup from the inside. Talia emphasized that Erik and Lyle had stayed nonviolent during their decades in prison, had shown growth, and yet were denied the basic human hope of freedom. Even cousin Anna Maria Baralt spoke out, offering a softer perspective. She reminded everyone that the brothers can apply again in just 18 months if they continue to stay clear of trouble behind bars. It was a glimmer of optimism in an otherwise grim week. But not everyone is on their side. The Los Angeles County District Attorney, Nathan Hochman, slammed the brothers during the hearings. He argued that Erik and Lyle had still not shown full accountability for their crimes. Prosecutors have long maintained that the abuse claims the brothers lean on are nothing more than a self-serving narrative designed to mask what they say was a premeditated, greed-driven double murder. And Hochman made it clear he wasn't buying a word of their appeals for sympathy. And then came one of the most jaw-dropping moments of the hearings. Lyle Menendez made a new claim, one he had never raised publicly before. He alleged that his mother, Kitty, had sexually abused him. It was an emotional, gut-wrenching revelation that stunned many. But the board remained unmoved, saying the claim was uncorroborated and came far too late to carry real weight. For supporters, it was more evidence of the brothers' hidden trauma. For critics, it was another attempt to rewrite the story. To really understand why these hearings were so polarizing, we need to rewind back to the crime itself. On August 20, 1989, 21-year-old Lyle and 18-year-old Erik Menendez walked into the family's Beverly Hills mansion and unleashed a shotgun blast that killed both of their parents. The case shocked America, not only for its brutality but for the privileged lives of the killers. At trial, the brothers painted their parents as monsters. They said they were victims of years of physical, psychological, and sexual abuse. But prosecutors argued it was nothing but an excuse, claiming the brothers were motivated by greed, desperate to inherit the family's fortune. After 2 dramatic trials and endless media coverage, they were convicted in 1996 and sentenced to life without parole. For nearly 30 years, that was the end of it. But shifting laws in California opened a door. Youthful offender laws meant that since the brothers were under 26 at the time of the crime, they could qualify for resentencing. That's how they ended up eligible for parole this year. The parole board didn't see what the Menendez family wanted them to see. They pointed to Erik's history of disciplinary issues in prison, including contraband phones, drug use, and even accusations of tax fraud. They noted Lyle's past rule violations and his alleged failure to fully accept responsibility. In the board's eyes, both men had a long way to go before proving they deserved a second chance at freedom. But to their lawyer, their family, and their loyal supporters, the decision was unjust, a political maneuver rather than a fair evaluation. That's why Geragos is fighting back hard. He says this isn't over, not by a long shot. And the public? Well, the reaction has been as divided as ever. On one side are those who believe the brothers were victims first and killers second, that their crime was born out of trauma and desperation. On the other side are those who see them as cold-blooded murderers who staged abuse claims to dodge responsibility. Social media is buzzing, TikTok is flooded with debates, and the true crime community is in overdrive. So where does this leave us? The parole board said no. The district attorney said no. But Geragos is betting on the courts, the governor, and the court of public opinion. The Menendez brothers remain behind bars, but their fight for freedom is far from finished. And here's the real cliffhanger: their next opportunity could come in just 18 months. Will they finally convince the board, or will public outrage and prosecutorial pressure keep them locked away for life? Only time will tell, but one thing is certain: the Menendez brothers are not going quietly. Make sure to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more celebrity updates just like this.